Hey YouTube, Matches 860. Smoking the Duca Carlo today with some Constellation from Cornell and Diehl. Right off the bat, I have a correction to last week's video. My review of Sutliff's Burley Delight was actually sent to me by Larry Toymaker Larry, 1955. I mistakenly said it was from Pipes and Kayaks, and luckily Larry was very understanding about that. Constellation's very good. Might have to review this. So you saw my thumbnail. This is not clickbait. I'm going to talk about sex education. And I always wanted to do this video, but I was unsure as to where that whole subject has come in schools nowadays. But this last week I came across an article, I think it was out of California, where it was mentioning there were many concerned parents that in sex education classes in the schools, they were now not only teaching the basic sex education, but a lot of the side dishes that go along with it. And I have to laugh every time I think about when I was growing up. Totally different world. And sex was one of those words you never said. You never talked about it. Usually around 4th or 5th grade, some kid would show up at school. We'd be out on the playground and they'd say, "Oh, wait till you hear what my brother told me." And that was how you learned about sex back then. So being born in 1955, there were a ton of kids my age. And as the 60s moved along, I think it was probably 65 or 66, it was very obvious that people were concerned that you had all these kids reaching reproductive age. You had all the hippies talking about free love, and I think the older generation was really nervous that we were all going to go out and have a bunch of kids out of wedlock. So you'd read in the newspaper at least once a week, and also hear on the TV or the radio, these discussions about should schools be teaching sex education and what's going to happen to this generation and so forth and so on. Well, this kept going back and forth every year. Will there be sex education in the schools this year? And I got into high school, 1971. Well, it was the 70-71 school year. This didn't happen till 71. And somehow this whole dilemma got resolved. And I guess what happened was the parents who were fighting sex education agreed to let the schools teach it if they could have their kids excused for the class that it was being discussed. So those arrangements were all made behind the scenes. And I showed up for my Biology 101 class this one particular day, and the teacher came in. Classroom was set up with desks that went around the class in a square. And he said to the class, he goes, so-and-so, 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 you're to report to the library. These kids got up and went to the library like they knew what was going on. And the rest of us are all sitting there looking at each other. Teacher goes over to corner of the square of the desk there, and he's got this stack of papers, and he gives it to the kid, and he goes, pass these around. So the kid grabs a stack, takes his paper, and gives it to the next one, and it goes all around. While these papers were being passed out, you could hear all these oohs and ahs and snickers and people whispering. Wonder what the heck's going on. Papers make their way around to me. Kid next to me hands me the papers, and I pass them along, and I look down, and kid next to me's elbowing me. Hey, it's a picture of a guy's dick. Look down at my paper. It's a picture of a guy's dick. Turned the page. Female reproductive organs. Now, this didn't look like any girl I had seen. Kind of looked like somebody threw a firecracker into her. Anyway, we had this 45-minute class. Went through your basic what goes where and what happens in 9 months. Which I already knew, everybody else already knew. The only interesting twist that the teacher put on it was all the various hormones that the female goes through every month, which at least gave you an understanding why they go off the rails all the time. Following year, I think it was chemistry class, teacher comes in. We're all going to the audio-visual room. So we all go to the audio-visual room, and she starts this film, and it was a childbirth film. And it was about as graphic as it can get. I didn't really have a problem until I think they were pulling the baby's shoulders out. All this fluid went squirting all over the doctor, and didn't faze him a bit, but he pulled out all those spare parts that come with the baby, and I don't know, I think my stomach turned when I saw that. Then my senior year, they had a local doctor come in and he gave some kind of lecture. I don't even remember what it was about. I think it was probably birth control. But ever since high school, I've wondered, what was the big deal about that? There were so many, well, actually it wasn't that many, but there were enough parents that were afraid that kids were going to go out and have sex because they learned about it. Geez, we learned about it before we could even have sex. I don't know. I think back though to my video on expectation versus reality when we were talking about how the media, television, portrayed one image of life and it was nowhere near reality. I think it took till like 1975 before you even heard the word sex on TV. It was Archie Bunker, I think, said it. That's my little story about sex education. By the way, it's Thursday, and that means you might get a bonus video this week. Stay tuned. We'll see you later. We'll catch you in the next video.